You know that feeling, right? That TikTok hypnosis?
Oh, I know it well.
You're just waiting for the microwave or something. You pull out your phone, you open the app, and you tell yourself, okay, just one or two.
Famous last words every single time.
The absolute famous last words. And then, I don't know, 40 minutes later, your coffee is stone cold, your leg's asleep, and you've watched a guy restore a rusted axe, a teenager dancing in a parking lot, and a chef making like perfect pasta from scratch. It's not just an app. It's the global stage now. It's where culture is literally being made in real time.
It really is. It's everything. It's the water cooler, the news, the comedy club all rolled into one endless feed.
But here's the question I want to throw out there for you and for everyone listening who's felt that sort of time warp. In all that time spent swiping, laughing, engaging, have you ever really stopped to look under the hood? To really look at the engine of this thing and ask yourself, is this safe?
And we're not talking about the basic stuff like, is my password 123? We're talking about the really specific structural risks that are kind of hidden in the way the scroll itself works.
Precisely. Because today we're diving into a resource that claims to be the definitive answer to that question. We're unpacking the ultimate cybersecurity guide for TikTok everyday users, influencers, and content creators.
Right.
And the whole mission for this deep dive is to figure out why this platform, out of all the apps on your phone, needs its own dedicated survival guide.
It's a fascinating idea, isn't it? Because normally when we talk about internet safety, it's very general. We paint with a broad brush.
Yeah, don't click weird links.
Exactly. Use two-factor authentication. Don't talk to strangers. Just, general web hygiene.
But this source is arguing that those general rules are basically like bringing a knife to a gunfight when you're on TikTok. And here's the thing that really got me right off the bat. According to all the material we have, this is currently the only book on the market that's dedicated specifically to safety and cybersecurity on TikTok.
That really surprised me. It's kind of shocking, actually.
Right.
I mean, given the user base, we're talking billions of downloads. You'd think there would be a whole library of manuals, but there's just this massive gap in our digital literacy. We have manuals for our cars, for training our dogs, for using Excel even.
Yeah.
But for the app where millions of people spend 2 hours a day, nothing. A total blind spot.
So, okay, let's get into that landscape. Because I can hear the listener asking, and I'll be honest, I was a little skeptical myself at first, why a whole book for one app? Isn't social media safety just social media safety, whether it's Facebook or X or whatever?
You'd think so.
Yeah.
But this guide, it makes a really compelling case that TikTok is a fundamentally different beast. It all comes down to the architecture of the platform itself.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about how you consume content on, say, Facebook versus TikTok.
Okay, let's break that down. On Facebook, I'm usually, looking at updates from people I actually know, or maybe a news article I clicked on. It's intentional.
Correct. There's a degree of friction there. You stop, you verify, you read, you decide. TikTok, on the other hand, is built on that short-form video. It's designed for rapid consumption, and this is the key, rapid sharing.
And the source says the speed itself is the threat.
The speed is the threat. I mean, think about it like this. It's the difference between getting a letter in the mail that you can inspect and catching a package thrown at you from a moving car.
Wow. Okay.
On other platforms, you have what you could call stopping queues. You get to the end of a post. You have to click to see the next thing. On TikTok, the scroll is infinite. The source argues that this removes that little moment of pause. That's where your critical thinking normally kicks in.
So you're just watching, laughing, sharing before your brain has even had a second to process if what you're seeing is legitimate.
Exactly. It puts you in a passive state. You're just receiving...
A conveyor belt.
It's a conveyor belt.
Yeah.
And if a threat, a scam, a malicious link, a piece of disinformation comes down that conveyor belt, you are so much more likely to interact with it because the entire interface is designed to make you act instantly.
So the UI itself is working against your own security instincts.
In a way, yeah. And then you add the demographic on top of that. The source points out that TikTok's biggest user base is teens and young adults. Now, we love to call this generation digital natives, and we assume they know everything about tech.
Right. They can edit a video way better than I can write an email.
They're tech savvy when it comes to using it. They know how to create. But the book argues they often have a pretty limited digital literacy when it comes to security.
That's a huge distinction.
It is. They know how to make a transition look cool. But do they know how to spot a really sophisticated phishing attempt that's disguised as a collab request from a brand?
Probably not.
And that leads to the third big problem the book raises, and this is the one I found most concerning. There's a profound lack of institutional support.
What do you mean by that? Like the company isn't doing enough?
No, it's broader. It means we're all playing catch-up. Think about schools. We spent 20 years figuring out how to teach kids about cyberbullying on Facebook or stranger danger online.
Sure.
But TikTok, it's still a massive blind spot in formal education. Policymakers are usually 2 steps behind. And parents. Parents might warn their kids about the internet in general, but do they understand the specific privacy issues of a stitch or a duet?
Probably not. Most parents I know are just happy if they can open the app without accidentally recording their own face.
So you have this high-speed environment, a younger, more vulnerable audience, and basically no guardrails coming from the traditional places like schools or, policy.
The perfect storm.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's why this guide says you can't just rely on common sense. Common sense applies to the world you know. This is a new world with new physics. You need a new toolkit.
So let's talk about that. Who really needs this toolkit? The title mentions everyone, everyday users, influencers, and content creators. Is this just a manual for the big-name stars, or does the casual scroller need to worry?
It covers the whole spectrum, and that's what makes it so important. The book lists educators, students, parents, social media pros as the core audience. But there is a really, really crucial section on influencers and creators. That's where the stakes change completely.
Right, the livelihood angle.
Yes. And we have to stop thinking of influencers as just some hobby. For a growing number of people, a TikTok account is a small business. It's their brand, their marketing, their revenue. It's everything.
I think people forget that. They see a funny video and just think, oh, that's cute. They don't see the hours of work, the sponsorship deals behind it.
Precisely. And the source details what happens when you lose access to that account. Imagine you own a bakery. You wake up one morning, the locks are changed, the inventory's gone, and someone else is standing at the counter selling fake muffins to your customers using your name.
That is a genuinely terrifying image.
That's what a hack feels like for a creator. It's financial loss, for sure, but it's also huge reputational damage.
Yeah.
And the book talks about the emotional distress. We're talking about years of work that could just vanish in seconds.
So does the book get specific? Because hacking is such a vague movie term. What does an attack on TikTok actually look like?
It gets very specific, which is its real value. It breaks down real-world issues, cyberbullying, of course, but also phishing scams that are designed specifically for the creator economy.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, a classic one is the fake brand deal. You get a DM or an email, it looks super official. Hey, we love your content. We want to pay you to promote our new sunglasses. Just click here to sign the contract.
And if you're a creator who's hungry for that first paycheck,
you click, and boom, just like that, you've handed over your login credentials. Or what about impersonation? This one is insidious. Someone copies your profile picture, your bio. Maybe they just change one letter in your username, add an underscore you won't notice. Then they start messaging your followers, asking for money, saying they want a prize. And because those followers trust you, they fall for it.
It weaponizes that trust.
It weaponizes the entire parasocial relationship. The book is trying to say, look, here is what the wolves actually look like in this specific forest.
Which brings us to the philosophy behind the guide. Because, you can list threats all day long and just scare people into deleting the app, but that's not realistic. TikTok's not going anywhere. So who is the person offering the solution here?
The author is Edson Agostinho. And he's not just a commentator. This guy is a seasoned cybersecurity expert. We're talking over 2 decades of experience.
So this is coming from a place of deep technical authority.
It is. He launched this whole thing under his WeCyberYou initiative. And his core argument, the thesis of the entire book, is that education is the first line of defense.
I love that. It sounds simple, but let's dig in. Why education over just, better software?
Because software has limits. Agostinho argues that technical controls, strong passwords, 2-factor authentication, are absolutely non-negotiable. You have to have them. But they're just tools. The ultimate vulnerability is usually the human being holding the phone.
The human error factor.
Right. You can have the best lock in the world on your front door. But if you open that door because the person knocking is wearing a plausible-looking uniform and holding a clipboard, the lock didn't fail. You did.
That's a tough pill to swallow.
It is, but it's also empowering. The book is all about moving users from being reactive, dealing with the disaster after the account is stolen, to being proactive. It's about building what he calls a human firewall.
Recognizing the threat before it can actually do any harm.
Exactly.
And I have to imagine the way this is all presented matters a lot. If it reads like a VCR manual from 1995, nobody's going to get through it, especially not the target audience.
That is a huge point of emphasis in all the material. The book is written in clear, accessible language. It's meant to be simple, engaging. It's full of practical tips, step-by-step advice. The goal isn't to turn you into a security engineer. It's to turn you into a savvy user.
Which is so key for that younger demographic we talked about. If it's boring, they're swiping away in a second.
Instantly. So it fills that literacy gap by making the information actually consumable.
Speaking of consumable, let's talk about access, because we touched on this. If the goal is to educate a massive, diverse, global audience, you can't just stick a hardcover book in a library and call it a day.
No. And the distribution strategy here really reflects that idea of meet the user where they are. The availability is, frankly, impressive.
Run us through it.
Okay, so you have the traditional formats, paperback and hardcover. For people who want that physical reference on their desk, but then for the digital natives, you've got the PDF, ebook, and, of course, a Kindle version.
Standard stuff.
But then you have the audiobook, and I think this is a brilliant move for a TikTok audience. Think about creators. They're busy. They're editing, filming, setting up lights. They aren't sitting down to read a chapter, but they can listen while they work.
Or while they're commuting or at the gym. It makes a ton of sense.
And in terms of where to find it, they've pretty much blanketed the market. WeCyberYou, Amazon, Google Books, Barnes & Noble, but also Spotify and Apple Podcasts for the audio versions. They've made it very hard to have an excuse not to access this information.
And the reception, from what we're seeing, has been good.
Very positive. It's being described as a timely and much-needed resource. And I think that goes right back to that uniqueness claim we started with.
Right.
There was a void. People knew there was a problem. Parents felt it. Creators felt it. But there wasn't a dedicated solution.
Yeah.
This book seemed to have filled that void.
Now, here is where it gets really interesting, especially for our global listeners. Today is February 7th, 2026. And the source mentions some major global expansion plans happening right now in Q1.
This is a huge step for global digital literacy. Because we have to remember, TikTok isn't just an American thing. It is massive in Brazil, in Europe, across Asia. The threats are global, so the defense has to be global too.
So what's happening on the international front?
Well, specifically for our listeners in Brazil and Portugal, the Portuguese version of the book is arriving soon. It's in the works and expected to release this quarter.
That's huge. Brazil is one of the biggest social media markets on the planet. The engagement numbers there are just off the charts.
They are. And at the same time, for readers in Spain and in Spanish-speaking countries across South America, the Spanish version is also arriving very soon.
That's fantastic. It really reinforces this idea that cybersecurity is a universal language. The threats are universal.
It just acknowledges reality, doesn't it? A phishing scam doesn't care if you speak English, Portuguese, or Spanish. The code is the same. The trap is the same. So by translating this guide, they're empowering millions more users to take control. It's a democratization of safety.
So let's bring this all back home. We've talked about the unique risks of the scroll, the speed, the lack of stopping cues, the way the UI can bypass our critical thinking. We've talked about the stakes, your reputation, your money, your mental health.
And we've talked about the solution, this proactive, education-first approach from Itzan Agostinho.
It really all comes down to realizing that TikTok is its own unique ecosystem, doesn't it?
Oh.
You wouldn't walk into the Amazon rainforest wearing flip-flops and just assume it's the same as your local park.
That is the perfect analogy. This book is essentially your field guide to that digital jungle. It tells you which plants are poisonous, which animals to avoid, and how to navigate without getting hurt.
And ultimately, it's about agency. It's about not being a passive victim of the algorithm or the scammer.
Exactly. Whether you're a parent trying to protect your kid, a creator trying to protect your brand, or just a scroller trying to keep your identity safe.
Yeah.
Your digital life is in your own hands. The tools are there now. It's up to us to pick them up.
And that leads me to the final thought I want to leave everyone with. We mentioned earlier that formal education, policymakers, they're all largely overlooking TikTok's safety. They're playing catch-up and they are slow. So if the schools aren't teaching it and the government is still debating it, does that make it your personal responsibility to become the expert for your family or your community?
That is the question, is it? If not you, then who?
Exactly. Maybe it's time to stop just scrolling and start securing. Thanks for diving in with us today.
Stay safe out there.